Hi, I'm Dr. Marc Aronson, and I'm a lecturer here at Rutgers. And I've had an interesting passage to get me here. My doctorate is in history, actually, the history of the book in America. But I've worked for something like 25 years as an editor and author of books for middle grade and high school, often trying to bring the insights that I gleaned in the academy to younger readers, because I've always thought there was a very good match between new thinking, fresh thinking, as it's being done by experts, and lively minds. The problem has always been that in between the two lay the jargon of the academy and the need to catch the interest and the attention of younger readers. So I've made a career out of that. And now I have the good fortune of trying to pass on some of what I've learned in training library students, and also in getting to work with colleagues like Dr. Todd, and learning from him, from people who are actually experts on how students learn, how information is brought to them. So I really gain from that. But the particular crossing point of me being here at Rutgers happens to fall exactly at the moment where education in America, K-12 education in America, is changing, and changing because of the Common Core. These are these new standards right now for reading and writing and speaking, but ultimately also for content, that have been adopted by 45 states and the District of Columbia. And as it happens, these standards emphasize, one, nonfiction as reading, nonfiction as also preparation for students' own research and writing, and most importantly, inquiry as a process, and the fact that all nonfiction inherently has a point of view, and that therefore what you do as a reader is not passively receive the magisterial wisdom that settles all questions, but rather engage in debate, pressing one theory against another, one approach against another, what a book says against what a website says, what a magazine article says, what a news paper clipping says. And that is the approach that I, to my great glee, have been working on for 25 years. And so now to see the schools preparing, at least, to embrace this approach has been thrilling for me, and to be here to think about how to train future librarians, school librarians, public librarians, to be in this world where instead of trying to find the one reliable source that safely and blandly passes on information, we are now culling and curating from every possible kind of source to give young people a chance to be in the debate, in the mix as new ideas come forward, as they are trained to evaluate them and assess them, is really thrilling for me. And every time I come here to teach, I also learn from people who are on the forefront of figuring out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to change education? How are we going to change librarianship? How are we going to change books as print books, as digital books, as enhanced books, as apps? All of this world in which we hope to immerse young people, not in receiving knowledge, but in the pursuit of knowledge. And so that's my exciting job. I get to teach. I get to share some of what I've learned in working with children and books, and over this 25 years, and I get to work with colleagues and learn from them. Because one of the oddities of the children's book nonfiction world is that while the one place where every child in America is exposed to nonfiction is school, the one place where most nonfiction written by authors like me never goes is school. Why? Because the books we write are in hardcover, therefore too expensive to be used in classes, and are not geared towards the kind of textbook question and answer. They're more like novels. They're personal explorations. So we've always been kind of outside of the school even as we're writing materials that potentially might be of interest to the schools. And so, again, to be at this crossing point moment where perhaps this individual author approach might fit well with what schools and libraries and teachers and children and teenagers need is a thrilling opportunity, and that's why I'm here. I tend to write in two different veins. My most recent book is coming out. It's not even recent. It's coming out shortly. It's called Master of Deceit, J. Edgar Hoover and America in the Age of Lies. And that is a very high school-oriented book. It is the first book for teenagers that has ever been written about J. Edgar Hoover, his empire of deceit and lies. But that also deals with the lies of those on the left and what they covered up and hid. And the crimes of Stalin. You know, one of the oddities of American education is that kids all read about the Holocaust and almost none read about the murders that Stalin committed, much less those of Mao. And so there is an imbalance. And so my book really, the reason for my book, I should add this here and go on the side. Why write a book about Hoover? Well, two things. People say to me, why would you write about such an unpleasant guy? Well, on the one hand, he was in power for 48 years. No other figure in America, in 20th century America, was as influential for as long as he was. So that's a pretty good reason. But the other reason is Hoover faced real threats. He was dealing with Hitler and Stalin, the two out of the three most murderous leaders in human history. So he did face real threats, and yet he also committed real crimes. I say we today face real threats, yet we have to be on the alert for the government crossing the line to take away rights that it should not. And I think we can only understand how to deal with real threats now if we understand how people dealt with real threats then. If we really merely make Hoover into a cartoon of some kind of right-wing insanity, it doesn't prepare us for thinking about, well, what do you do when you face an enemy who really does want to sow terror and destruction in your land? What rights should be taken away, if any? Well, I wrote the book to help us think about now by looking back at then. I also write books for younger readers, more middle grade, and often working with a scientist who has made a new discovery. So, for example, I spent a couple of summers working with a team of archaeologists at Stonehenge who were making new discoveries there. And I have a book coming out soon that I wrote with Dr. Lee Berger, who is a paleoanthropologist in South Africa, who has discovered a new species of hominin from about 1.97 million years ago. And this is the book, the story of how he and actually his then 9-year-old son discovered these fossils, 2 complete, and it may be up to 6 fossils, skeletons, or parts of 4 others, 2 complete, and what it takes to make a new discovery. I'm very interested in having young people realize that now is when discoveries are possible. When I was a young person, when I was the age of those readers, I wanted to be an archaeologist, but I was frustrated because I felt like all the good stuff had been found. Schliemann found Troy, Sir Arthur Evans found Crete, Howard Carter found King Tut's tomb, nothing left for me. Well, as I discovered in working with scientists today, everything is left to be discovered, because if you think in new ways, if you look in new ways, you find new things. And that is the ongoing theme of the books I do for middle grade readers. One coming out next year will be, I did a book with a woman named Adrienne Mayor, who is a professor at Stanford. She figured out that the griffin of legend is actually based on a fossil, the fossil of the Protoceratops, which Scythian gold hunters saw and described and the Greeks turned into the legend. And so it's about how you can read through a legend to find a fossil. So those are the kind of books I work on for younger kids. For older kids and teenagers, I often work on books that get them to think about and challenge and perhaps think about changing the society in which they are about to take their place as adults. So that's my work.